Pokemon Legends Arceus is the latest entry in the mainline Pokemon games, having released on the Switch back in January to much praise from critics and fans alike. It broke new ground for the series by deviating from the usual formula, and instead going for a Breath of the Wild style approach. Naturally, a game like this has to have a wide array of characters for the player to encounter, but which of these characters have Arceus' blessing, and which ones are more on the moral side of Giratina? That's what we're gonna find out today. I'm Kyle with PokeBinge, and this is Pokemon Legends Arceus characters good to evil. And fair warning, spoilers ahead. As always, we'll start off with the most noble character and work our way down to the most vile. These characters are the good. The character who earns the gold medal of good is Professor Laventon. Professor Laventon traveled to Hisui from a foreign region on a quest to help create its first Pokedex. Right from the start, he helps the player up after they fall out of the space-time rift. After helping him recapture the starter Pokemon, he gives them some food and a place to sleep, and helps recruit them into the Galaxy Team's Survey Corps. Even when the player is banished from Jubilife Village, he's still loyal to them and is willing to help them fight Kamado, but is only stopped by Silene when she warns him he could meet the same fate. The fact that Laventon is kind enough to give shelter to a complete stranger, let alone a stranger from the future, and always continues to believe in them, is what earns this jolly guy our top spot. The silver medal of good goes to Adaman and Irida, the leaders of the Diamond and Pearl clans respectively. Adaman and Irida are bitter rivals at the start of the game because of the historic clashing of the two clans over the almighty Sinnoh, what they call their god. While Kamado has managed to form some semblance of neutrality between them, they don't completely trust the Galaxy Team, and the player is no exception. However, when the player is tasked with quelling the frenzied Noble Cleaver, they both quickly gain a trust in them, with Adaman giving them the Celestica Flute. Throughout the course of the game, it's shown that the two have good leadership skills, treating their clan members like family and convincing them to trust not only the player, but others from the opposing clan as they sort out their differences. Adaman and Irida eventually do become good friends, and vehemently stand by the player after they get exiled. When the player chooses one to come with them to the Three Lakes, the other goes to keep Kamado occupied, and they both help the player confront him on Mount Coronet, with both being the strong allies they are throughout the adventure. This should be more than enough to earn them both the Silver Medal of Good. Earning the Bronze Medal of Good is Kagura. Kagura is the mistress that lives in the ancient retreat that Volo takes the player to when they are exiled. One of the last of the Celestica people, she is very knowledgeable about all of Hisui's many myths and legends, and tells the player about the Red Chain, which can cause the space-time rift to disappear. Particularly, she guides the player to Lake Guardians, as they have the materials needed to craft the chain. In the post-game, she aids in collecting the remaining plates, and gives the player the reveal glass after catching the forces of nature and completing their Pokedex entries. Not only is Kagura an essential ally towards the end of the main story and post-game, she's also willing to give the player a place to stay after they're exiled, which easily earns her the Bronze Medal of Good. The strict captain of the Survey Corps, Silene, is up next. She is initially cold towards the player, and their meetings really only consist of brief survey reports, but this changes when the player is banished, as she's clearly unhappy about having to lead them out of Jubilife Village. Additionally, she sends her Aber out to the ancient retreat to help the player access their pastures while in exile. The great loyalty Silene holds is what ranks her this high. She also gives huge upgrades like new types of Pokeballs when the player reaches higher rankings, so that is a plus. Next up, we have Ray and Akari. Regardless of which of the two it is, they more or less fill the same role as Professor Laventon's assistant, and are the opposite gender of the character chosen by the player. Along with the player, Ray/Akari is tasked in studying the various areas and the Pokemon in the Hisui region. They teach the player how to catch Pokemon and how to craft at the beginning of the game. And much like Professor Laventon, they remain loyal to the player after their banishment and assist in crafting the Origin Ball during the climax. Once again, the loyalty and the huge role they play at the end of the game is what places Ray and Akari here. Now we reach our first warden. Stemming from the Pearl clan, we have Polina. The overseer of the noble Arcanine, she initially has no noble, as the previous one sacrificed itself to save its child, Growlithe. In the present day, the rest of the Pearl clan want her to raise Growlithe to become the next noble, but she has decided to let it live in peace after its trauma. Because of this, her capability as a warden is being questioned by her other clan members. However, she does eventually become a warden when Growlithe evolves while coming to the rescue of the one kidnapped by the Misfortune sisters, making it the next noble. Additionally, she's a great partner to Iskin, who she's in a secret relationship with. We can't help but have respect for Polina because of her willingness to sacrifice her reputation in the Pearl clan by doing what she thinks is best for her Pokemon. On that note, next up we have her partner, Iskin, the Diamond Clan warden who oversees Basque Legion. He seems a bit cowardly, but his actions when he was younger say otherwise. Around the same time Arcanine sacrificed itself, he saved Polina's life, despite her being from the Pearl clan. Because of this, they're in a relationship that they have to keep secret, because of the rivalry between their two clans. The youngest of the wardens, Leon, is up next. The Pearl clan warden who oversees the noble Cleaver. He is somewhat of a child prodigy, hence why he was chosen as a warden despite his young age. Because the player is an outsider, he is initially suspicious of them when they come to help Cleaver, but after a battle, he accepts their help. Since he is very knowledgeable about minerals, he's a crucial ally in finding the Origin ore needed to craft the Origin Ball at the end of the game. The Diamond Clan warden who oversees Wordier, Mai, is next. Not too much is known about her, but she is known for her kindness, as she was an older sister figure in Adamant's childhood, and is highly respected by Leon despite being from a different clan. She's also useful when massive mass outbreaks start spawning, as her Munchlax will reveal which Pokemon are present when given 5 Aguave berries. Next we have Ingo. Veteran Pokemon players may immediately recognize him as one of the leaders of the Battle Subway and Pokemon Black and White. Like the player character, he arrived in Hisui from the future via the space-time rift, and almost completely lost his memory. He helps the player traverse through Wayward Cave after the torches get removed. And in the post-game, he offers Path of Solitude battles and gives the player the ability to battle most of the characters in the game. From one Pearl Clan warden to another, next up is Kalaba, caretaker of the noble Ursaluna. She is initially cold to the player and wants nothing to do with them, but she opens up when they recover the wall fragments from the Misfortune sisters. In addition, she's willing to use her medicine to help heal Arizu's sprained ankle, despite the two being from different clans, which is a kind and humble gesture. Moving on to Sabi. Sabi is the Diamond Clan warden who oversees Braviary. We don't see much of her, but she makes the player chase her all across the Alabaster Icelands, until she finally leads them to the Snow Point Temple. Additionally, to get Braviary, she battles the player in a 3-on-1 battle, and all her Pokemon are at high levels with powerful moves. If that wasn't enough, she also has the player go through Braviary itself to get it. All these obstacles can get pretty annoying in case you couldn't tell, but in the end, Sabi has no ill intent, and at least helps the player find Regigigas in the postgame. A smaller character, up next is Amph. Amph provides the player with new attire throughout the game. She will occasionally give requests for Pokemon to be shown to her, to give her inspiration for new designs. What makes her stand out above all her peers is that while everyone else is paranoid about there being a connection between the player's presence and the expansion of the space-time rift, she refuses to believe it. Moving on to Zissou. The captain of the security corps, Zissou is found at the training grounds. When the player first meets her, she tells her how strong and agile style moves work, and she offers various move-related services over the course of the game. These include teaching Pokemon moves they can't otherwise learn, allowing Pokemon to master moves in exchange for Seeds of Mastery, and exchanging grid items, which are some invaluable services. Moving on to Colza and Miller. Colza is the head of the Agriculture Corps, responsible for maintaining the farms and growing crops for Jubilife Village. He will allow the player to harvest food items like apricorns, berries, and mints so they can have multiple. Miller, meanwhile, will give the player various missions throughout the game to give him ground-type Pokemon that he can use to create more fields for the farm. The head of the Medical Corps, Pacelli, is up next. Not too much is known about her, but she looks out for her fellow Galaxy team members when it comes to their medical needs. For example, she uses a Krogunk's poison to help cure a patient's backache after she is brought one by the player via a request. Almost like a Nurse Joy, but with people. Moving on to Sanqua, other than being the head of the construction corps, we really don't know all too much about her either. That said, it is implied that she has a kind heart when the player learns that she brought an injured Pichu into her house and nursed it back to health. The head of the Ginkgo Guild, Ginter, is up next. He sells rare items to the player, such as honey cakes, max revives, Pokeballs, and evolution items. His rarest and most valuable items, however, are the mechanical items that can be used to change Rotom's form. Next are Zeke and Wanda. Zeke and Wanda are a brother and sister duo that are members of the Security Corps. Throughout the game, Wanda gets lost in each of the major areas, and Zeke asks the player to find her each time by having Ursaluna learn her scent via her handkerchief. When she gets lost in the Alabaster Icelands, however, Zeke sets out on his own while Wanda eventually finds her way back to the village, and then helps her brother and the player out of a cavern. It's clear that these two look out for each other, which is always an important trait, and can rescue others if need be. Now it's time to do a quick roundup of the Jubilife Village townspeople that offer important services. Choi is the owner and operator of the Jubilife General Store, where the player can buy items like Pokeballs, potions, revives, and cakes. Lucille resides by a shrine and sells player various charms that can prevent fainting, heal status conditions, and lose fewer items. Simona is in charge of the trading post, which allows the player to trade Pokemon with other players, and buy evolution items with merit points obtained from collecting others' lost satchels. Bon owns a candy stand that sells EXP candies. Anvin is the head of the craft works, where craft recipes and materials are sold. Edith is the hairdresser at the start of the game, which allows the player to change their hairstyle. Daguerre runs the photography studio, where the player can take pictures with their Pokemon and later with other characters. Marie allows the player to check their pastures and change their team. Bellamy assesses the player's Pokemon's friendship, and lastly, Thule is the other Ginkgo Guild seller who offers materials like berries. We decided to group all these people together because while they all belong in the good, there really isn't much to say about them outside of what they do. And rounding out the good section is Erizu, the Diamond Clan warden who oversees the noble Lilligant. Erizu is initially seen in kind of a negative light, as she purposefully hid the fact that Lilligant was frenzied in an attempt to fix everything on her own. Although she has good intentions, this has also caused more friction between the two clans, as her actions caused Ursaluna to go crazy. After this series of events, she goes to Jubilife Village to become Edith's apprentice as a hairstylist, while retaining her warden duties. As previously stated, Erizu initially had good intentions, but her recklessness is what gives her a lower placement. With that said, we wrap up the good section and move into the neutral part of our morality spectrum. This is the gray area. We start the gray area off with Garrick, the Pearl Clan warden who oversees the noble Avalugg. Garrick is initially not willing to let Avalugg be quelled from its frenzied state, believing that it wouldn't harm others. However, unlike someone else who we'll be discussing later, he becomes okay with the idea after seeing the player's strength in a battle. While he's not a bad guy, Garrick lands in the gray area because, after all, he sees no harm in Avalugg being frenzied, which means the Pokemon would have stayed in pain if it wasn't for the player getting involved. Next is Baggin. A member of the Security Corps, Baggin can increase the player's satchel. A big help for sure, but there is one drawback. The price increases more and more each time. Many frustrated players would agree that this is a very good reason for him to end up in the gray. The head of the Supply Corps, Tao Hua, is next. He refuses to communicate with his colleague whenever he needs new stock, forcing the player to act as a middleman to do the dirty work for him. It is later revealed that he hates Choi due to him being married to his beloved granddaughter. But if you ask us, this is just petty, and it's not fun being trapped in the middle of a conflict like this. Next we have Benny. Hailing from the same town as Kamado, Benny is the owner of the Galaxy team's food shop, the Wallflower. He's a kind guy, but during the game's climax, he stops the player from going after Kamado by revealing he is his right-hand man, and initiates a battle. He clearly cares for Kamado, as after the battle, he begs the player to stop him, so as to not get himself killed. Even though Benny is a nice restaurant owner, the fact that he allowed a man to go forward with the intention of killing a literal god is what places him firmly in the gray. The Diamond Clan warden who oversees the noble Electrode, Melly is next. There is a reason why Melly is almost universally hated. He's stuck up, arrogant, has an ego the size of a Snorlax, and is even disliked by others in his own clan. Even though Electrode is clearly suffering while it is frenzied, he believes the power granted to it is a blessing granted to the Diamond Clan by the almighty Sinnoh. Because of this, he doesn't want the player to help out Electrode and tries to stop them by removing the torches in the Wayward Cave, and battling them twice. Melly sounds like he's downright evil, but what keeps him in the gray is the fact that he eventually does give in, and allows the making of the bombs to calm Electrode. We finish off the gray area with Kamado, the commander and creator of the Galaxy team. Kamado is willing to do anything to protect both the team and all of Jubilife Village, and is also implied to be responsible for the neutrality between the Diamond and Pearl clans. That said, Kamado goes too far by exiling the player when he becomes suspicious of them, thinking they're responsible for the expansion of the space-time rift. Eventually, he takes matters into his own hands by going up to Mount Coronet and trying to stop the rift himself by killing Dialga or Palkia, depending on which path the player takes. Kamado just teeters ever so slightly towards the evil side, but is only stopped by the fact that he apologizes for his actions and had nothing but good intentions. And with that said, we now move into our final category, where our bottom 3 characters lie. But real quick guys, before we get into our next section, do me a huge favor and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. It really helps the channel grow, and we've got lots of new Pokemon videos in the works on the video games, the trading card game, the lore, and so much more. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the video. These characters are the bad and the evil. The Bronze Medal of Evil goes to Vesa. Vesa is a mysterious child in Jubilife Village who sends the player on a quest to gather all 107 wisps scattered throughout Hisui. When all the wisps are collected, she comes with the player to the Shrouded Ruins to place the odd keystone back to where it originally came from. It's here that she reveals that there are actually 108 wisps, and she is the final one, causing a Spiritomb to spawn for the player to capture. If you know your Pokemon lore, all 108 wisps are spirits that form Spiritomb, and the odd keystone traps the spirits, some of which are ill-natured. If that's the case, it's very possible that Vesa has a dark deed to her name, which gives her the Bronze Medal of Evil. The Silver Medal of Evil goes to the Misfortune Sisters, Coin, Charm, and Clover, ex-members of the Pearl Clan, Galaxy Team, and Diamond Clan respectively. The Misfortune Sisters are a trio of bandits that like to steal both objects and Pokemon, and are encountered several times throughout the game. The first time the player meets them, they learn they were the ones that stole the wall slab in the ruins, and they also steal one of the Growlithe in Polina's care, and they also attempt to steal the Origin Ore towards the end of the game. Afterwards, each one can be encountered randomly through Hisui, dropping nuggets and stardust upon each subsequent defeat. Being the game's obligatory thieves, it should be a no-brainer as to why the Misfortune Sisters get the Silver Medal of Evil. And finally, the Gold Medal of Evil goes to Volo, a traveling merchant with the Ginkgo Guild. Volo comes off as a friendly guy, often popping up and giving the player items and advice. He also brings the player to the ancient retreat when they get exiled and sells items in place at the store. After finding the remaining plates in the postgame, Volo reveals that his Ginkgo Guild persona was a ruse at the Temple of Sinnoh, explaining that he contacted Giratina in an attempt to meet Arceus. This caused the space-time rift to tear open and subsequently lead to all the noble Pokemon becoming frenzied. With the last remaining plate, the Spooky Plate, in his possession, he demands that the player hand the rest over so he could meet Arceus and use its power to destroy and recreate the world. After a long battle, Volo summons Giratina in one last attempt to take down the player's team, but it too is defeated, causing Volo to realize that Arceus will never join him, and runs off. Aside from being one of the toughest fights in all of Pokemon, Volo was responsible for all the trouble the space-time rift caused. Not to mention he takes control of what is effectively the devil, which easily earns him the Gold Medal of Evil. And with our morality spectrum wrapped up, let's finish things off by awarding some Sinner medals. The Gluttony Medal goes to Mai. Her partner is Munchlax, which is the epitome of this sin. The Pride Medal will be going to Melly. He thinks so highly of himself that he feels like he has the right to refer to himself in the third person a lot of the time. The Greed Medal will be given to the Misfortune Sisters. After all, their whole shtick is stealing things. The Wrath Medal goes to Volo. He snaps out of nowhere and isn't afraid to use force to get the rest of the plates from the player before the final fight. And lastly, he'll also get the Lust Medal because of his desire for Arceus to become his partner so he could reshape the world. But let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Make sure to hit that notification bell so you can binge more of our Pokemon videos as soon as they're uploaded. Thanks for watching.